traveling from Marlinton, West Virginia to Damascus, Virginia, well, it was pretty wet that day. Right? In fact, I was planning on doing the Back of the Dragon, which is Route 16, and then also Nebo Mountain Road, and I did those rides, and they're great roads. But it was so wet and rainy that I didn't even bother to turn the cameras on. Just none of the footage would have come out. And it's a shame, because as I said, they're just absolutely amazing roads. Later that day, I picked up a fellow traveler, and his name is Ron. Ron is one of my YouTube subscribers, and he had contacted me and asked me if he could come along for a couple of days. Ron decided to put his rain gear on.
My last dry pair of pants, so can't risk it.
So it's time to get it on. Now, while Ron and I had a great time riding together for a couple of days, we did have a little bit of an auspicious beginning. And that is because of the torrential rains all day long, our meeting place got changed a couple of times. So finally we decided on a location, and Ron told me he was going to be at a Kangaroo Express on this certain road. So I'm like, okay, well, I'll go find that. So I look on my GPS and I cannot find the Kangaroo Express. I look on my phone and again, I cannot find one either. But I figure I'll just run up and down the road and I'll find it. Well, after a couple of passes, I couldn't find a Kangaroo Express. I even stopped at another store and asked about it, and they didn't know what I was talking about. Well, embarrassingly, I find out later, after Ron and I finally got hooked up, that a Kangaroo Express is the same thing as a Circle K. And so we don't have those as convenience stores up here in the Northeast, so I just wasn't familiar with it. But the Circle K was coming up on my GPS, but not a Kangaroo Express. Now, after Ron joined me, it was still pretty wet for most of the day. But luckily, by the time we got down to ride Virginia 58, which is the Jeb Stuart Highway, or also known as the Mighty Python, things had cleared up a little bit. Roads were still wet, but at least it wasn't raining. I had to apologize to Ron because he was on his Tiger 800 and I am on my big 900-pound touring bike, and I said to him, I hope I wasn't going too slow for you. He said I was doing okay, and we had a great ride all the way into Damascus. Along with riding the Mighty Python, I wanted to head to Damascus, Virginia, because Kathy and I had stopped in there back in 2015 and just really had a great time. The place we stayed back then and on this trip is called the Damascus Old Mill Inn, and if you're down there and you want a really nice place to stay, I suggest you check them out. They have a real nice down-home feel to it, and they have a great restaurant and bar right there on the little river that runs through Damascus there, and said it's just a really nice atmosphere. And on this particular trip, Priscilla, our waitress and bartender, took really good care of us. Okay, well, we finished doing the Mighty Python. And I don't know about Ron here, but I am worn out from today. Raining 200 miles of turns. I don't think there was a straight road in the 240 miles that I rode today. So we are now in Damascus, Virginia at the Old Damascus Mill. We're staying here at the inn, and we just had dinner at the restaurant. If you were ever this way, this is where you need to stay. It is a really cool place, great food, great atmosphere, right? And this is Priscilla. We're hanging out with her here at the bar, just having a grand old time. All right, so, right?
Yeah, subscribe.
Oh, yeah, that's right, subscribe.
I believe.
Yeah, she's subscribing. We got two of the waitresses here going to subscribe to the channel. That's right. We need those young people subscribing to my channel.
Yeah, keep motorcycling going.
There you go. All right. After a great meal and a good night's sleep, Ron and I jumped back on the bikes and we headed towards Maggie Valley, North Carolina. And again, unfortunately, the weather just wasn't cooperating with us. I mean, it was just pouring torrentially for pretty much the first half of the day. And the first ride that we wanted to do from leaving Damascus there was to jump on the Snake. So we picked up the first half of the Snake, and as I said, it was just absolutely pouring. There were just rivers of water running across the road. So we just kind of very nice and leisurely picked our way through the first half of the Snake, and then stopped in Shady Valley at the country store there. Met some other guys who were also out riding in the area, talked with them a bit, and then luckily the weather dried up a little bit, so we got to do the second half of the Snake with relatively dry conditions. However, after the Snake, well, the heavens opened up again, and while we got to do a few more great roads, we decided to cut the day a little bit short because, again, the weather just wasn't in our favor. So we decided to jump on the highway for a little bit and head into Maggie Valley a little bit earlier. However, when we did that, we of course got right behind this big rig that blew a tire right in front of us, and just rubber shrapnel was flying everywhere. Luckily, we got out of there unscathed, and neither one of us really got hit hard by any of this rubber, but it was a little bit of a scary moment. After arriving in Maggie Valley, well, Ron and I met up with another one of my viewers, Richard, who rode more than 500 miles from Indiana all the way down to Maggie Valley just to spend the evening with us. Now, Richard and I had started corresponding back on my lead up to the Alaska trip. Richard had done an Alaska trip himself and was sharing some of his experience with myself and Peter and Stephen, and we greatly appreciated that insight. But over the years, we've continued to correspond and have become pretty good friends because of it. So I was really honored that Richard took the time to ride more than 500 miles to see us, and then turn around and head back again the next day. Now, another reason that we were glad to see Richard is that he brought a nice bottle of Knob Creek whiskey to share with us. And so after dinner, we set out in front of the hotel room, shared that bottle of whiskey, and had some great conversation.
Well, I'm currently 67 years old and really didn't start riding a motorcycle until I was 58. And ever since a tumultuous start, broke my ankle and cracked some ribs in the first 50 feet, and then decided maybe I ought to take an abate class. And once I did that, then I've been in love with it ever since. It is that sense of being in the environment, and anybody who rides a motorcycle knows that when you ride, you're not just sensing the road, but you're smelling things, you're feeling every little change in the temperature, you're subject to what the environment is. A lot of rain like today, it's all part of it. I just love that sense of being out there and cruising down the road. You know, somebody once supposedly heard Louis Armstrong playing down in New Orleans, and they said, "Who is that?" And the answer was, "If we got to tell you, you ain't never going to know." It's kind of that sense of it. You just got to do it, and when you do it, you feel it. and it's hard to describe, but once you do it and you get attached to it, you just don't want to give it up.
Yeah.
I love the long distance stuff. I love doing it with some friends, but I'm equally enjoying it when I'm by myself. I've ridden to Alaska, north of the Arctic Circle, ridden to Newfoundland, and every time you stop at a campsite, which I enjoy the camping part of it, but you just meet people who always have a fascinating story, who've had different experiences. Sometimes they kind of sync with yours, sometimes not, but it's the community of motorcycling, the people come into it from different backgrounds. They're just fascinating folks. As I was sharing with you earlier, just purely by happenstance, some friends and I ran into a lady whose name was Woody out on Idaho Route 12, which is one of the most beautiful roads for a motorcycle in America. And she didn't need to do this, but she led us back to a hot springs. And she said, the bad news is I only have 5 beers, so we're going to have to share them. Okay, so we sat in a hot spring and shared beers with this lady named Woody, and it was just an amazing event, one I will never ever forget. Something that, it's those kind of adventures that keep you coming back to this.
I went back to college. I always loved the idea of being on a motorcycle, but I never had time. Just probably like, most of the people out there. So it was the right time. I got a small, cheap motorcycle, tried it, learned on it, and discovered that I really liked that feeling. So that's how I got started. Just
how would you?
So this is very cliche, but it's the freedom of picking a destination and going, and just planning your own route, planning, the different ways that you're gonna get there. It's just being able to go to anywhere, because a motorcycle opens other routes that are not available normally. So I think that's what I really enjoy. Right. Plus, you can carry as much stuff as you can in your car, so there's a little bit of danger to it. So all of that, it's exciting. It's right. Exciting. Very cool. I think for everybody, I don't know how it is as you progress in your skills. I've been doing this only 5 years, but when I'm getting close to do a big trip, I still get butterflies on my stomach, and that's part of the fun to me. For some people, it might be too much. Maybe they need to have everything planned out, everything needs to be perfect, the weather has... But for me, having those butterflies on the stomach is part of what makes me want to go and experience this.
So after a great night, we got up in the morning, and Ron and Richard had to head back to their respective homes. So with a heavy heart, I said goodbye to both of them.
Well, all right, sir. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you riding along. It was a lot of fun.
It was good, man.
All right. Be safe.
All right.
All right.
I'll follow you along, man.
Awesome. I think it's you, Ripley.
I think you may be right.
Yeah.
All right, sir. You be safe out there.
All right. Well, you too. And again, happy birthday.
So
have a great adventure.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate you writing down like this.
Oh, glad to do it.
All right.
Well, I envy the time that you'll be doing it, and especially when Kathy's with you, because that'll be so cool.
Yeah, absolutely. That's going to be amazing. So.
Yeah.
All right. I won't say stay dry, because that's not going to happen.
You're right, yeah. As dry as possible.
Yep. Oh, boy.
Thank you.
I guess I'll just keep going here. It's just really awesome that I've got these people supporting me to come out and do this trip. I mean, Richard there, we've kind of become friends. You know, we started, you know, corresponding, you know, based upon my videos and my trip to Alaska, because he had done one before as well. And then, you know, we became friends, and he has come by and visited us up in Vermont when we were last year with our riding club. And then he rode all the way down from Indiana, did 500 miles yesterday in not great weather, and now he's headed home in even worse weather, another 500 miles. So, you know, I really appreciate that. You know, it really touches me. And then Ron came out, you know, to ride with me for a couple of days as well. Again, just absolutely awesome. I think I've made a friend there as well that will probably be continuing on into the future. And we also talked about maybe doing some rides down in South America at some point. So we'll see about that. I got to run it by the wife first.